Superman 2 review. 2 cuts, 1 winner.
Welcome home movie nights to a very special episode inside the Crypt of Knights. I just rewatched both versions of Superman 2, the Donner cut, and the original theatrical release. One is clearly better. Stick around to find out which.
Folks, let me tell you, we've got 2 versions of Superman 2. The original theatrical cut from 1980, terrific movie, a classic, a box office smash. And then, decades later, in 2006, they released the so-called Richard Donner cut. Now listen, I know a lot of people like Donner, great guy, but let's be honest. His version is not better. In fact, it's kind of a mess. Rushed edits, test footage as finished scenes, and more comedy from Lex Luthor than we ever asked for. And people say Lester's version was silly? Come on. The original had heart, action, and yes, a little camp. But it worked. Lester stepped in and saved the day. Total hero. Donner may have started it, but Lester finished it. And he made a winner.
Plot summary.
Here's what happens. General Zod, Ursa, and Non, 3 Kryptonian supervillains, are accidentally freed from the Phantom Zone after Superman hurls a hydrogen bomb into space that some terrorists had planted in the Eiffel Tower in Paris. In the Donner cut, there is no hydrogen bomb, as there is no Paris scene. It is one of the missiles from the first film that frees the 3 Kryptonians. Now they're headed to Earth, getting juiced up by our yellow sun, and ready to take over the world. Meanwhile, Clark Kent and Lois Lane are falling in love at Niagara Falls. Lois figures out Clark's secret, so Superman takes her to his ice palace, gives up his powers for love, bad move, and gets beat up in a diner by a bully. He finds out about Zod and his Goonies right there at the diner. Realizing the world needs him, he gets his powers back, fights Zod and his crew in Metropolis, and outsmarts them at the Fortress of Solitude using some very clever red sun tech. Lex Luthor's in the mix, trying to cut deals with both sides. In the end, in the Donner cut, we get him turning time back, again, to erase everyone's memories. But for some reason, the whole bully scene didn't disappear from people's consciousness, everything else does. In the theatrical release, Superman gives a super kiss to Lois to erase her memory. Yeah, okay. Fixes the damage and restores truth, justice, and the American way. We also get Superman flying with the American flag and putting it back on top of the White House. Terrific stuff.
The making of. The Donner firing. And Lester's triumph.
Let's get into the drama because, folks, it's better than reality TV. Back in 1977, the Salkinds decided to film Superman and Superman 2 at the same time. Very ambitious. They brought in Richard Donner to direct, and he shot most of Superman 2. About 75%, give or take. But as production dragged on, the budget ballooned, and Donner clashed with the producers, especially Pierre Spengler. Tensions were high. Donner wanted complete control. The studio said, "That's not how this works." You might not agree, but the sensitive artist is not always right. Just ask Kevin Feige how things really work in the real world. After Superman was released in 1978, a huge hit, the Salkinds made a big decision. They fired Donner. Now this has been painted as some big scandal, but let's be real, it was the right move. He was going way over budget, and he refused to play ball. So they brought in Richard Lester, a director with a proven track record and experience working with the Salkinds on the 3 Musketeers. Lester came in, reshot about 30 to 40% of the film to qualify for directorial credit, and gave the movie a lighter, punchier tone. Now here's the twist. A lot of fans think Lester made the film too goofy, but that's totally unfair. Donner's version, released in 2006, actually has more slapstick from Lex Luthor and random tonal shifts. Lester's version is consistent, fun, and polished. And remember, Gene Hackman refused to return for reshoots, so they had to use a body double and voice double. Despite that, Lester kept the story moving and gave us that iconic Metropolis showdown. He didn't just finish the movie, he saved it. And then there's the Brando situation. Marlon Brando had shot scenes as Jor-El for Superman 2, but he sued the studio for more money after the first film. So the Salkinds, being smart businessmen, said, "Forget it. We'll use Superman's mom instead. Cost-effective, creative, and Brando was demanding way too much. The Lester version worked just fine without him. The firing of Donner divided the cast and crew, sure. But movies are a business, and the studio had to make a tough call. They picked the guy who could actually deliver the movie on time and on budget. And guess what? It paid off.
The music controversy.
Here's another interesting piece: the musical score. John Williams, the legend himself, was supposed to come back. But after meeting with Richard Lester, he said he couldn't work with him. Said there was a personality clash. That's what they call it in Hollywood when two guys don't want to be in the same room. So Ken Thorne was brought in, Lester's guy, and honestly, he did a fine job. Thorne adapted a lot of Williams' themes, added his own flair, and kept things moving. Was it as iconic as Williams? Maybe not. But let's be fair. It was still epic, still heroic, and it fit the movie Lester was making. The music served the tone, and that's what matters. Not every film needs the same sweeping score. Sometimes you need a remix. I had the Superman 2 soundtrack, and for years I didn't even realize it was not John Williams.
The cast and the Brando drama.
Let's talk cast. Christopher Reeve was once again perfect as Superman. Margot Kidder brought sass and smarts as Lois Lane. Gene Hackman? Hilarious. He was filmed entirely by Donna, so they had to get creative to fit him into Lester's film. But it worked. Jack O'Halloran as Non, Sarah Douglas as Ursa, and Terrence Stamp as Zod. Iconic performances, Stamp especially. That voice. Kneel before Zod. Absolute legend. And my all-time favorite line in all Superman movies.
Who is this imbecile?
Now the Brando thing. It was all about money. Brando wanted millions in back-end gross points. After suing the studio, the Salkinds decided to cut him out of Superman 2 completely. They rewrote the script, gave Jor-El's lines to Lara, and moved on. It was a smart pivot. Sure, Donner used the Brando footage in his cut, but it doesn't really add much. It's more nostalgia than narrative necessity. It's just another example that great characters are more important than any actor.
The press junkets and cast loyalties.
When Superman 2 was released, most of the cast skipped the press junkets. Why? Because they were loyal to Donna. Reeve, Kidder, and a few others felt the original director got a raw deal. But Hollywood's full of egos, folks. And when the studio makes a business decision, not everyone's going to be happy. It happens. Interestingly, Sarah Douglas, who played Ursa, was the only cast member who really stepped up and did global press tours. Total profit. She stayed neutral in the Donnerverses, Lester drama, and focused on promoting the film. That's what professionals do.
Marketing.
Warner Brothers went all in on marketing Superman 2. We're talking posters, lunchboxes, t-shirts, you name it. Pepsi tie-ins, pop-up books, even pajamas. The film was everywhere. And why not? It was a proven brand. People were hungry for more Superman, and they delivered.
Release and success.
Superman 2 opened internationally in late 1980, then hit the US in summer 1981. And it crushed it. Biggest opening weekend at the time, record-breaking single-day grosses. It eventually made over $216 million worldwide on a $54 million budget. That's called winning, folks. Absolute box office smash.
Legacy in other media.
The impact of Superman 2 is still felt today. In Smallville, they used imagery and ideas from the film, like the Ice Fortress, the spinning Phantom Zone Square, and even brought in Terrence Stamp to voice Jor-El. That's right. Zod himself became Superman's dad. Talk about legacy. And when Brandon Routh took over the cape in Superman Returns, 2006, it was a direct sequel to the Lester Donner films. Same universe, same heart. Even used Marlon Brando's voice and face. The influence of Superman 2, both versions, lives on. But let's be clear, the theatrical cut is the one that truly flies.
Bonus facts.
Coca-Cola has been prominently placed in countless films over the decades, often to maintain realism. Studios would either feature Coke organically or borrow vintage signs for authenticity. In Superman 2, the whole film is packed with Coke logos, cans, fountains, billboard, etc., but there's no evidence of a financial agreement or that Coca-Cola had creative control over these scenes. In contrast, cigarette placements, like the Marlboro truck, were paid, and Philip Morris allegedly had creative input in those scenes. That's the one clear example of product placement control. Until next time, thanks for tuning in, and keep watching The Crypt of Knights.